get out your pen and pencil and notepad and paper because we're going to school, baby. We are going to talk about how to do Commander, but not just any Commander. We're going to talk about how to be a finance bro in Commander, playing Commander with the desire to win. But this is the tweak that the finance side brings to it, is that you are going to be focused more so than any normal Magic player on value, because it's not just about value on the table. It's not just about converted mana cost and getting the most bang for your buck from the mana side of things. It's also about the value of your collection, the value of your cards. Is this card more valuable as a pseudo investment piece on the table, or should you just sell it? These are all things that the finance bro must consider when building a Commander deck, and when considering what cards to keep in your Commander deck and what cards to sell in your Commander deck. For example, I just sold a piece of a Commander deck. I just sold, boom, baby. Check this out. This Etched and Complete Shieldred. Will I be eating my words in, a month or whatever when the price doubles again? Maybe, but I bought this for $160 and to sell it for $275 today feels really good to me. That is a card that was bought for a Commander deck, and it did its job in a Commander deck, but now we're at a point where it's no longer doing its job in a Commander deck and can now be sold. Let's dive in. Let's dive into an actual Commander deck. Oh, that's not it. Dive into an actual Commander deck that I am building right now. The thought process, the value assessments, what do I care about when I am choosing cards? What cards do I buy? What cards do I not buy? Let's just dive in. Before I talk about it, I want to give a pro tip too. This is, I guess, pro tip number one is don't be a dork. Don't be a jerk. That being said, tip number two is when you trade with people and when you build your collection, you want to consolidate value. That is the goal. If you're able to trade 10 $5 cards for a $50 card, you have won that trade. You've come out ahead. Now, that's why I say don't be a jerk is rule number one, because if you just go to every trade table and you're like, if I'm not consolidating value, I don't want to make a deal, then I guess you can do that. You can totally do that, but don't be a jerk about it, because other people might feel the same way, that they also want to consolidate value. And maybe you need to trade 11 $5 cards for a $50 card. Honestly, that's good trade, and it might feel like a win-win where one person's like, sweet, I'm getting more value, but you're consolidating that value. So that's the pro tip number one. Okay. After real pro tip number one, which was don't be a dork jerk. This channel strives for monetization, and it limits the vocabulary that we can use here. Anyways, okay. So who's the commander? It's this feller from New Capenna. Agnes, the Dragon's Lash, who it's a female Vashino warrior dragon lady. Yep. Haste, when a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tap treasure token. So immediately what you think about is, what am I going to focus on for this deck? Haste. Of course, I want as many haste creatures as possible. Why build this deck? Because you like haste. That's why you build this deck. It's a haste forward deck. It isn't the number one haste forward deck, but it's a good one. There's a couple ways you could build this deck. One is with haste enablers like this. Rising of the Day gives your creatures haste. And then the other way is you only build with creatures that have haste. There's pros and cons to both. If you build with enablers, then you can play cards that don't have haste, but might synergize really well with the ability that creates treasure tokens. And that's the direction we're going. It was actually my birthday recently, and there's some people who love me very, very much, and they got me a couple really incredible cards for this deck. Concordant Crossroads, green, 1 mana, all creatures get haste. Old Gnawbone, talk about consolidating value. Now, Joel R. Magic made a video recently that, and by the way, love Joel, and he gave me a shout out, and that was so nice. He made a different video, not the one with my shout out. Man, talk about value. Check out this guy. This is like a $90 card. Ancient Copper Dragon. Absolutely insane card. I can't believe my friends pitched in along with family members to buy this for me. I'm just surprised the friends were willing to let me own this card, because this card, it can be so oppressively good. But anyways, this was my birthday present. My big birthday present this year were these cards, and I think there's one more coming. But anyways, really cool. Right, what was I saying? I was saying that it's no, I lost it. That's fine. Okay, so let's continue on. Haste enablers, like Lava Reach Boots that gives a creature haste, like Handward Battlement that can give a creature haste. There's just good cards in every commander deck, like Shared Roots. Another haste enabler, Mass Hysteria, which is the red version of Concordant Crossroads. Generic good commander cards. And then we get a bunch of hasty boys. Is this a good card? 4 mana, 4/4 with Death Touch Haste that has Ward? No, but in this deck, I think it's going to do some work. And honestly, in my play group, Death Touch does a lot of work. And getting in with 4 feels pretty good. Plus, it makes treasure token every turn with your commander. Mwah, love it. Right, so taking a step back, because this isn't just a deck tech, this is about value. So what am I doing here? I'm showing you a lot of actually really cheap cards. A lot of like 50 cent, $1 cards. And then I'm showing you a couple really expensive cards, like $90 cards. This, let me tell you about my reason for including both of these card types inside of my decks. You know, there's some like $5, $10 cards like Academy Manufacturer, but Guardian Project is a, $10 card. But a lot of these cards are just like cents or super expensive. And I'll talk about the cents cards first. Cents cards are awesome. It turns out you can build incredibly powerful commander decks for basically no money. There are so many cards out there, so many powerhouse abilities, impacts, effects. So for example, in this deck that cares about haste, talk about Vigilance, Trample, Haste, enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to its power. This is perfect. This is a perfect card for the deck. $1. Just came out. Ares, God of War. Ares attacks each combat of Fable. When an attacking creature you control dies, return that card to its owner's hand. Incredible for this deck. You're going to have all these hasty creatures, or just attacking creatures, and some of them will die, and getting them back to your hand is incredible, especially because they have haste. You don't have to wait a whole turn after you play it for it to attack again. So the point is that there is so much valuable, powerful cards that are super cheap, and that is one direction you should go. And honestly, it's probably the primary direction you should go when you're building a deck. The other thing about these cards that are cheap now is that they can become quite expensive later. I've experienced this many, many times where I build a commander deck on a budget. It's less than $100 for the whole deck. And then it includes a couple cards that were like 20 cent, 50 cent, $1, maybe $2, $5 cards that they're good. They're just good cards, and they go in a lot of commander decks. And then a new commander comes out and, gets spoiled in a new set or whatever. And then people are like, wait, that's a good card. I want it for that deck. And they start buying it up. Price spikes up. And then before you know it, you have cards in your collection that are worth a bunch of money that you bought for super cheap. That's been one of the primary ways I have invested is honestly by building commander decks, building cheap commander decks that have good cards in them that are budget that eventually go up in value. It's not guaranteed. I don't buy commander deck being like, this shall appreciate and double in the next year. It's not like that, but it happens. It's like, well, this is more the high end thing, but it's like the Shieldred, right? I bought it for a commander deck, play with, it's fun, resolved it a couple times. And then it goes, doubles, triples in price. And I'm like, it's not worth 270. I'd rather have $275 than this card. So done and done. You know what I'm saying? So that's talking about the cheap cards. Let's talk about the pricey cards. Let's talk about the Ancient Copper Dragons or Old Gnawbone. Oh my gosh, so cool. Once again, cannot believe somebody suggested to my wife that we buy these cards for me. So high value cards are targets for reprint. Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier. Joel R. Magic talked about how there's a lot of cards that are ripe for a reprint. And I think he even mentioned Old Gnawbone. And while that is true, the way reprints have been done recently as the special guest slots and sets has not really, well, let me cool down. It has dropped the price of that card, but it hasn't necessarily dropped the price of the original printing. Like Trouble in Pairs that came out and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes, that copy from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles isn't that expensive, but the original really didn't see a price hit. Rhystic Study in Final Fantasy did not really impact the price. Just there's a number of examples of these high ticket cards where even though they get reprinted, they're reprinted in such a small quantity as like a special guest or a bonus sheet or whatever, that it doesn't seem to really impact the price. So yes, they could come out with a master set. This is me saying I disagree with Joel R. Magic's thesis that there's a bunch of cards ripe for reprints, and so now's the time to sell them. Because honestly, now might be the time to buy them, you know? Anyway, I love Joel. So the expensive cards. These are valuable. There's two versions of cards that are particularly valuable or kind of powerful to have in your collection. It's the least expensive copy of a card, like Ancient Copper Dragon. This is the least expensive version of it. It's like $90, crazy. And then there's the most expensive version of it, like this Shieldred. That's the Step Incomplete foil. Most expensive copy of this card. Now it's going for like $275 or whatever. The stuff in the middle is trickier. Obviously, it's like fun to own. It's cool, but often the liquidity, in my experience, the liquidity will be worse. It won't sell as easily, and it won't sell for nearly as much as the best version of the card. So that being said, so you can either, if you're really optimizing your, do whatever you want, but if you're really optimizing your value of your commander collection, your decks, whatever, either go for the least expensive versions of cards or the most expensive versions of cards. I prefer the least expensive, usually because the most expensive versions are often foil, and foil cards in commander decks kind of suck sometimes. I hate it when you can tell that the next card you're going to draw is foil. It sucks. Hate that. So anyways, I often I prefer the like base copy non-foil. That's my preference. These cards hold value, and sometimes they appreciate, but often they at least hold their value. And that is incredible because you can buy these staples that, you're spending money, but look, like, so by the way, as a disclaimer, I'm at MTG Finance Bro, and I buy and sell stuff all the time. These are special to me because friends bought them for me. So I'm not going to be selling these anytime soon or ever. But let's pretend I was going to, let's say I bought an Ancient Copper Dragon and I was going to sell it. I bought it for $90. Let's say it's still $90 a year later. You sell it, you lose 15%. So that is about $13, $14. That sucks, I guess. But the fact that you retain 85% of the value of what you spent is actually phenomenal if you think about it from a commander deck perspective. Because let's say I built a commander deck out of 100 Ancient Copper Dragons. That's silly, I know. But then, yes, you spent 100 times 90, whatever that is, 3 zeros, $9,000 on a commander deck. Pretty crazy. But the fact that after all is said and done, you actually get back the vast majority of that money, it makes your hobby suddenly way less expensive. And that's part of the value, is buying expensive cards that are foundational pieces to the game that are not going to decline in value. And so it's not about speculating. It's about buying cards that play well, that are powerful and good, have great effects, and are always going to be desirable, which these two are good examples of that. Concordant Crossroads is not. If they reprint Concordant Crossroads a bunch, its value, I think, will go into the ground because it is kind of a niche effect, in my opinion. I'm not sure. I wouldn't bet like too much money on that. But on the other hand, Ancient Copper Dragon, Old Gnawbone, these are cards that are just like lots of decks would want them. every deck would want them, could play them, and they'd be good in basically any deck. So their value going down is just like non-starter for a conversation with me. So it's pretty cool. Let's, this video is way longer than I thought it was going to be. Just a little bit of, cheap cards, some staples. Fogs are so good, so underrated in Commander. Soul Ring, blah blah blah. Other staples. Check it out. I got this Pernicious Deed signed by the artist. So cool. So cool. Signed cards are so cool. Oh, then lands. Lands. I'm a big fan of lands. I think having powerful, what the heck? I've got 2 Quicksilvers. Whatever. I think having powerful lands is fun. It's not as needed as you might think. There's a lot of great inexpensive land options that work perfectly well. But I think it's fun. I think it's fun to have shocks in fetches and being able to fetch for your shock lands or the triomes or whatever. I think it's a lot of fun. So it's something I invest in. And generally, the value of those cards also stays flat. It's fun. It's so fun. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Kind of a weird video, I know, but I just thought I would take a chance to show off a little bit of my birthday present, a little bit of my thought process when I'm building a Commander deck, the way I think about cheap cards and expensive cards. And hey, if you like this stuff, you should subscribe. We're getting super close to 1,400 subscribers, which feels incredible. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.